So we decided to put potato together. I'm dyslexic. So if something is not exciting, it would not flow. And I remember reading the script, without putting it down. And I called her as early as 4 a.m. I'm sorry I woke you up, but this we're doing. So I would say my approach to collaboration is attending conferences. People knowing that you run something is not enough. I don't think anyone would give their money to you just because you're running a program, and all of that. You need to show that you can deliver results, right? I network. You have to spend money. The people who you can't meet in Nigeria. If I find that there's a minister who is not available to me in Nigeria and the minister is going to Dubai, I will go to Dubai and go and meet you there. So I'll say two things. Number one,
Hello, good evening, my dear listeners. I want to start by apologizing. I've not been very faithful on the podcast, not because I didn't want to, but because it's been a bit challenging getting guests to speak. That's why today I'm so ecstatic that I have someone really special that is doing this interview with me. Her name is Inya, but I like to call her Dr. Inya. She's really special because she's a bundle of knowledge. I like to think of her as a serial entrepreneur, but she's also a social entrepreneur. She started a lot of businesses. She has a business called Ascent Studio. She's the CEO. She's also the producer or co-producer rather of a very popular movie that we all know called Potato. She's also the program director for AWE, which stands for Academic for Women Entrepreneurs, sponsored by the US Consulate. And she does so many more other things. In fact, recently, she signed a partnership with USAID for $3.5 million to help build the creative industry in Nigeria. But I'm going to allow her to unpack that herself. And I'm going to pause here and allow her to say hello to all of us.
hello everybody. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we're finally doing this, isn't it? It's
Yes,
it's been a long time coming.
exactly. It has, and I'm so grateful that you were able to grant this interview because I know you're really busy. You've done so many conferences this year that have been so impactful. I was there on one of them, and I can attest to how impactful it was and the lives that have been changed just because you had a dream and you were determined enough to follow through to make them these things a reality. So I'm going to pause and then maybe ask that you give us a big brief background about yourself so that the audience can know of a certainty that I've brought someone that can really give them the knowledge that they deserve about things to do with social entrepreneurship and even entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you want to know? Background, all of the details about myself or work, or should I mix it?
Okay, let's start with this. So you are the program director for Academy for Women Entrepreneurs in Nigeria, but you also have
Mhm.
a PhD in performing arts, right? So they are unrelated. So maybe we could start by what did you study in school and how did you get to then setting up a studio and then move to product
Bring
program
it
director.
together.
Let's take it sequentially. So what did you study in school and how did you get to
Okay.
where you are now?
Okay, so I studied theater arts, and then went ahead to do my postgraduate on performance study. So it was a bit of performance study and business. But I remember saying, always saying to my siblings when I decided to study theater that I wanted to have an understanding of the creative sector, and because people couldn't understand, I'm the last born of nine. We're nine kids.
Wow.
We're eight girls,
9.
one boy. Yes. Yes, nine.
What position are
So
you?
I'm the last one of nine, and we have lawyers, we have an accountant, we have an engineer, we have an architect. We have all sorts, of qualification in the family. And when I came up and I said, well, I'm the only one in arts, and I said, oh, I wanted to study theater arts, it was a big shocker to my dad, especially. It wasn't a shocker to anybody because they saw it from the time I was young that, this was someone who always wanted to
Do things
to
and
put
just
things out there.
mhm.
Exactly. And so when we had that conversation, he said to me, why do you want to do that? At a point, I even tricked him and told him, well, I would read journalism and I would change, just sign and say it's okay to study this. I told him it was an easier way to get admitted into the
Okay.
university, So he agreed and signed with the agreement that I would change my course. And then eventually, by the third year, he realized that wasn't going to happen, So so but then from the beginning, I was really curious as to how to go into the creative sector and work out the business side of it. And I'm using play language because this was how it played in my head, then. So the love for the creative sector started when I was I was a child. My dad worked for the government at the time. We lived in Ilorin, and when I was really little, and you know how TV stations were then, it wouldn't come on until 5
4
p.m.
o'clock.
And
Okay.
then they would play a cartoon film or something for maybe 30 minutes, and that's it for the day. Every other thing is for
Yes.
adults. And I remember I used to say that, why do we have only 30 minutes of content? I used to complain. And then sometimes I'll be disappointed because the NTA sign will just show for a very long time and you won't be able to watch anything, and then it starts at 5:30 abruptly. So
Mhm.
for me, that was the first love for saying, I have to do something about it. And you'd notice throughout everything we were talking about today, in terms of everything I've done, is always noticing there's something wrong and saying I have to do something about it, in
Mhm.
that way. And that was how my love grew for the arts. The only thing I knew that were available then in terms of studying was theater arts. I didn't know, there was no business and the arts or anything, anything like that. So that was what I went for. And I quickly got in and realized, I had to read wider. If I really wanted to go into the business of arts, my dad wanted me to study abroad, do my uni abroad. I insisted I wanted to do it in Nigeria because I said it was the authentic theater I would learn in Nigeria. That was why I chose.
That is so unusual.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because I told him, I said I can always travel. It was like, I'm just very stubborn, and everything. But I eventually went ahead, did it, and then once I was done, I moved to Sweden because then I then saw a course that offered me, um, if I translate it, it's called performance study. So you
Okay.
study the performance and how it helps the society and how it shapes the society, and it puts a bit of business into it as well. So finally I was like, oh, okay, this looks like it. So I
Mhm.
went to Sweden to continue my study, and that's how come I started studying that. And at the time, Twitter was becoming popular. It is, Facebook was launched, and then Twitter was becoming popular. And one day we're just bantering on Twitter, and I remember meeting. I think it was Inse. I first met Inse Kweetem.
Okay.
Inse on Twitter. We started chatting, and all of that. We never really talked about management at the time because I never thought about management at the time. But then shortly after, I met OCUKJ as well on Twitter. And on meeting OC, we were bantering. It was really funny. We were bantering about something, and then I think he DM'd me and said, this your name, Inya? Is it even a real name, or is this a fake account or something like that?" And I went off on him. How can you insult my name? It was just something very silly. And then he apologized and said, I'm sorry, told me, if you really know the real me, I'm not a troublemaker. I was just asking, and all that. And we became friends. So from chatting, I said, well, he said, so, what's your background? Like, you're in Sweden. What do you do exactly? I said, Google me. So, and then he said, Google me. And we both went ahead and Googled each other. We both Googled each other, and I saw he was an actor. Then they had just shot the half of the Yellow Sun. It had not come out yet. Um, and then some other projects as well. So I messaged him back and I said, why don't I know you? How are you doing so well? You've been in half of a yellow sun with all these other people, but I don't know you. What's going on? And he said, well, we started talking about Nollywood. So it was from talking about Nollywood that I said, you know what? I'll take this challenge on, and that's how my talent management career started. That was how the talent manager career started. So I just went in on it, and OC, to give him credit, he trusted the process all through and through. I told him, look, I know how to use conventional ways to get unconventional ways to get results, like just studying things and seeing how trends are, and all that. And he trusted me, and OC's career, I started managing him from there. He started winning, AMVCAs. I mean, he had done amazing work, but what needed to happen was more of the push, out there. And that was the birth of the talent management company. And I remember eventually, then all the other talents started rolling in. Insam, Auntie Jokesova, Uncle Lou Jacobs, Shirley Frimpong Manso, Jocelyn Duma, all of them started rolling in, because right after OC, when OC got to a point, we thought, let's start getting international agents. Then I found some agents who said, why don't we start a company together? So we started a separate company together called Restless Talent Management. And it was under Restless, we started signing, more and more people. 2 years into Restless, I left and went back to Ascend. And from there, I just continued my career in that way. So yeah, that was how it started. And then from there, from doing that, we got to a point where we said, where I called Shirley and I said, look, people now Africa, it wasn't, I mean, the time wasn't like now where everybody was shouting, or right now that everybody's shouting, oh, African stories and all that. It was there, but people were not trusting the process, at the time. It wasn't this
Yeah.
popular, but we were early on, into this. We saw that it would go far and all of that. And then Shirley and I spoke, and I
How
said,
long
well,
ago was
Shirley,
this?
let's find a film. Pardon?
How long ago was
Pardon?
this? This era that you're referring to.
This
This
was
era that you're referring to.
2012. 2012.
Okay. Okay.
So 2012 was when I started, and then around 2015 or so was when the conversation with Shirley started about making a movie that was Pan African, that we could have several people in. So we decided to put Potato together. We didn't even know it was Potato because I just told Shirley, I said, Shirley, you like art house film? Find me something you've written that is really exciting and funny, and that if we produce that, then trust me, we will produce an art house film. So she sent me the script, and I'm dyslexic, so if something is not exciting, it would not flow. And I remember reading the script, without putting it down. And I called her as early as 4 a.m. I'm sorry I woke you up, but this we're doing, this is lovely. It is the script. Let's get it done. And that's how we produced it. So that's how the production side, the studio side started in terms of production. So from there, we did the production. We went to Cannes with it, the Cannes Film Festival. We went to Durban. We went all over the world, with it. And another problem posed itself: distribution, right? So it was at the process of distributing Potato that I realized that our structure was really fractured, in terms of the structure of, from birth, from development to just giving the whole process from development to production, then to distribution of a film was really, really fractured. And I felt trapped. So it was at this point I felt like, oh, I thought this was going, like we're fixing this. I didn't want to be another film studio that will produce one movie and then start looking for money for another movie. I said, no, it's not, it can't be. It can't work that way. So how, what is the way forward in terms of approaching putting together a structure to get things done, and that search took me to Nigeria. I moved from Sweden to Nigeria. I said, well, I better be on ground to do this work from here, as I was pushing for the distribution of the film. At the same time, I started looking at, what was that?
Okay. You said a lot of things that I need to unpack. So for one, how did you meet Cheryl? Number two, how did you get the funds to produce your first movie? Because you make it sound so easy, but I know it couldn't have been that easy.
Oh,
And then number three, are you saying that you were in Sweden while you accomplished potato?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not
Because
just potato
wow,
potato. So I was in Sweden when I was managing OC, KJ Bankole, Auntie J, Uncle Lou, Shelley Frimpong Manso, Jocelyn Duma,
wow.
Anthony Oseyemi at a point, Nana Mensa at a point, Kemi Adesoye, Tunde Aladeshe, Kemi Lalaki Doju, like all of this. Yeah, I was based in Sweden. I was doing the management from there.
Because you must be a great people's person to be not physically with them but to be able to manage them, because people take
Mhm.
it for granted that you can do so many things physically, but when there's a
Yeah.
distance constraint, then the skill of being able to communicate
Hmm.
effectively and being having the emotional intelligence to deal with actors comes into play. And that
Yeah.
is a real skill that people take for granted sometimes, you know. So I'll pause here and
Mm.
allow you to answer some
It
of the
wasn't
questions I
easy.
asked.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't easy at all. I mean, there were a few shouts on the phone for certain people. They were getting to know each other, the whole process of getting that done. But we made it work. We made it work because at the end of the day, what we wanted, something that I know that they all knew was that this was for good on my end. I wanted results and I was
Yeah.
really dedicated, to getting those results. So I feel like there was trust, to a certain level, of what
Then.
the goal was in terms of doing this in the first place. Yeah. And in terms of the film, so obviously for the first film, myself, Shirley, and Jocelyn just put money together. That's what we did. I spoke with Shirley. Shirley was the one who spoke with Jocelyn. I spoke to Auntie J and I said, well, Auntie J, you forfeit your fees because we can't pay you. So your fees would be part of the investment, for the film. But in terms of the actual investment, it was my money. I was running a company. So outside of this management, that wasn't my main work. Oh. I had an active company that I was running in Sweden. It was an events company that I was running in Sweden. I did cultural events, at the time. So that was giving me its own money. And then, part of my savings, I put savings together and everything. I said, surely let's get this done. And we got the movie made. So it was our collective funding, myself, Shirley, Shirley's partner Ken. Shirley's partner and Shirley, came in as their own production company. I came in as my own production company, and CJ forfeited her fees for her own side, and then Jocelyn also put up some money, and that's how we got that bit done. So we got the film made. It got to distribution process. We partnered with someone who ended up being a disaster for distribution. We had to let that process as well go. And then there were lots of challenges. Honestly, I'm just summarizing so many challenges through the part. But eventually I realized, you know what, if you're going to continue in this line, it's better to just go to Nigeria and, and just see how you can sort this out. So as I was there in Nigeria, I got an email from a US government person who reached out to say they have an international guest coming to Nigeria and they're looking for creative students, for that person to train. And that's how I entered the US. I mean, that's how the relationship started because of that, email. Responded to the email, helped them
Did you
coordinate the
did you
thing,
did you
and then
did you sorry, for those people curious, you know, you said you got an email. Was this person familiar to
Mhm.
you, or it was because of previous work that you had done before that you became familiar to him?
It was because of the previous work that I'd done that I became
Okay.
familiar to him. So they knew that I dealt with talents in that way. And it wasn't even directly. Someone else recommended me to them.
Wow.
Yeah, so we didn't have each other's emails or anything. Someone else recommended and say, speak to this person. And I was contacted. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
lesson here
yeah.
is
So
also
when I was
then that
contacted for it,
your
mhm.
okay. I was going to say that the lesson here also is then that whatever you do it well, because it's you're writing your CV indirectly by the work that you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So someone recommended me, and then, I got the email. And once I got the email, I responded. Of course, I took it on. I responded.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was another person involved, and I wouldn't name who. That person was like, "Are they paying? I'm not doing it." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm happy to do it though. Whether anyone is, paying, that people are gonna benefit from it. So why not?
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
went ahead, curated the event, and after curating the event, I was an active part of it. After curating the event, and then there was an intro. So someone also then, who saw that I was involved, then did a direct intro to a person of contact there, and said, "Oh, you need to know this person personally. Like, the work they're doing is amazing and all of that." And then that person reached out to me and invited me for a dinner they were having. So I attended the dinner, and then I approached myself. So after attending the dinner, I approached myself. I said, "I need to see you. That I need to talk to you. It looks like you're the one doing all these programs and getting all of these things sorted. I need to meet with you. I need to meet with you." And this was Mr. Ibrahim Aliu. So this was just Ibrahim Ali from the US consulate. And I said, "Well, I need to talk to you. I need to meet with you." And he said, "Okay, no problem. And he sat with me, and I just told him about myself, from the beginning, all the stuff that I did, from the time from beginning till then. I told him, I said, "Look, I feel like at this point I'm a bit stuck. I feel like I need a mentor, but I believe that the mentor I need is not anywhere around me. I need someone who has been there, done that, someone who is running trillions of dollars is who I need. I want to see my future, basically in this person. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
have I noticed anyone around me? I said, "There's nobody." And he said, "What about, around Africa?" I said, "I've not seen anybody in Africa." I said, "I've not seen anybody." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You feel strongly about this?" I said, "Yes, I feel strongly about it. I just feel like I can't find the person. I've researched, I've looked around, and none of these people resemble, what I have in my mind in terms of who I want to sit with and talk to. I want to talk to someone who has gone
Mm-hmm.
really far." So he said, "Okay." He said, "Be in touch with us. And we will, whenever there's any opportunity or anything, I'll let you know." So I was in touch. Eventually, I started being invited for, there was a program they were doing on mentorship. They were training people to mentor. It wasn't even us get or the participants getting mentored. It was training on how mentorship works. And then I was contacted to curate and bring in the creative people. So I brought in the creative people that I curated quickly. Called all the people. "Oh, this is important." Nothing. I just, curated everyone. We showed up at the event.
Mm-hmm.
We did it. It was helpful to everyone who attended. From there on, again, I got called again to say, "Oh, the person who did the training for us, I think the person was I can't remember what role, but the person was leaving. So they said the person was leaving, and they were doing a farewell event, that they needed some form of performance, there. I
Mm-hmm.
curated, "Do you have a budget for the performance?" They were like, "Oh, there's no, it's one of those ones. There's no budget." I said, "No problem." I remember the amount, 320,000 naira, as at how many years ago. I called performers together,
No,
paid
please
them.
pause,
Yeah,
pause, please. Can you pause a bit? Because I'm saying this to say I cannot count the number of events that you said you have done with your own money, and it's important because you say
yeah,
it so
yeah,
casually, but
yeah.
this is I'm trying to document
Mhm.
what led you to how successful you've been now, because sometimes people, I think it's
Yeah,
our culture, Sha, we don't
yeah.
want to do things for free. Meanwhile, in the West, that's how
No,
you
we
get the
don't.
experience. You volunteer, you do so many things that build your
It
progress, your
is.
portfolio, your experience.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I remember 320, I can never
So
forget.
you
And
were
then
doing so many
I
things for
called my
free.
friend.
And that would have
Yeah,
been a lot of
I
money
called my
then. It's
friend.
it even still is right
Oh,
now.
yes, it was. Oh yeah, and we put it together, we delivered, and then the person who was then coming, I was called again that the person who was taking over from this person who left is now coming. That now they have a budget, but what can I do with this
Mm-hmm.
amount? I said, well, the amount doesn't go, it won't go anywhere, but I will add my own money. So again, I added a budget just to make it a performance. Called a friend, can you help me curate it? There's no budget. I'm adding my own money and all that. They curated it, they did the performance. So it was at that event I was also invited. I was being introduced to everybody. Oh, this is Inya. She's been doing a lot for us for free. And I remember, that language. So they're doing a lot for us for free. There's a partnership here. And, I was my background and everything was explained and everything. And eventually I remember I came on holiday in the was I on holiday? Yes, I was on holiday. I was on holiday in the UK, in December.
Mm.
And then I got a call from Mr. Ibrahim, and he told me that there was a project, there was a program, and that I was going to be, they are able to nominate, but he told me not to put my hopes high, that because it has a very low rate of acceptance, because it's very competitive. So it is, he told me a few people are selected from all over the world, but that what he said, I didn't even retain the name, because what he told me was that if you go on this program, yeah, it will change your life. I was like, okay, I'm happy. Please, I'm available. Anything, just let me know, and all that. So I think they put me forward for nomination. I was accepted in the locale to be the one, sent for it. And then I was contacted by him, and he said, congrats, I need you to apply. So now I can apply for it, and they were still going to apply. So he explained to me, is our application your application that we will submit, and then they would select you. So it was then the name clicked that it was the Fortune Most Powerful Women's Mentoring Program. So I went online and
Wow.
Googled it, and I saw, oh, you'd be paired with the Fortune 500 women, and all of that. And, I was really excited to see. And we applied. And then in February, I can never forget, I just went to TK Maxx to shop. One of those shopping that you just be walking around and all that with my sister. With my sister. And I remember how in Maidenhead, I stood in front of TK Maxx and I was screaming my head out, because he called me and said, you will not believe it. Because he told me the last time someone was accepted from Nigeria was like 4 years before or something like that. And he said,
Wow.
you would not believe it, you've been accepted for the program. So I was so happy. I
I
said,
can
well, you have to
imagine.
start coming to Nigeria. I said, yeah. I said, tomorrow. I'm coming tomorrow. No problem. So came back home, did my processing and everything. And then, eventually I even heard that the company that originally was paired with me pulled out. And that meant I would have had to wait for the following year. But it was pushed at that level that no, I had to come. So that's how I got
Mhm.
Dina Powell of Goldman Sachs, and that's how I got the number of mentors that I got, because Dina was too busy as well, and
Mhm.
had emailed the leading executives of Goldman Sachs to say who else would like to mentor alongside with me, because I can't take her for this long,
Yeah.
and then I ended up with 20 mentors, 20 before I left, different people
Okay.
heading different departments, just started saying
Okay.
I would do it.
I,
Yeah.
this is a moment I have to unpack again. So, first of all, who is or who was Mr. Ibrahim? What was his designation then? As in, what was his role? Because he must have played a very pivotal role in your progress. So, what was he the coordinating person at the U.S. consulate at that time? And then
So he does
you didn't
programs.
tell
So
us
he
who
heads
Diana
some
Pearl.
programs.
Okay, okay. And then you say
Hmm.
Diane Paul, but most people don't know who she is or how
Hmm.
significant her position is in the US. So please explain so that they can understand who mentored you, and then maybe the other
Who
people that
she
were
is.
involved to just so that they know. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dina Powell is she at the time she had just left the Trump administration as the special advisor on international affairs to Trump. So she was working, she had worked with Goldman Sachs. In fact, she had worked in the Bush's administration and then worked in Obama's administration. Dina was, I hear, in the Bush's administration, was responsible for hiring most of the women who are still there till today. So you find a lot of people who are still within the White House saying, "Oh, Dina was my boss. She's responsible for hiring me," and all of that. And then she worked in the Trump's administration, and at a point she worked with Goldman Sachs to do their foundation. So Dina started the whole give back initiatives and all that. Worked extremely on the women's agenda, as well, for Goldman Sachs. Was part of the people who launched the 10,000 Women program that Goldman Sachs has, as well. That is Dina's baby, I hear. And
I'm
at
aware of
this
that program.
time, she had just left. Yeah, so she had just left Trump's administration to come back to Goldman Sachs at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, so that is Dina Power, and then the other leading executives are, if anyone can Google Stephanie Cohen. She's a director at Goldman Sachs, or was a director at the time at Goldman Sachs. She's probably even higher, right now. These were people who were on the highest
Yeah.
floor of of Goldman, not where not everyone would go to. We had Asahi Pompey as well. We have some of the people who are now Times Magazine's most powerful women were the ones who mentored me at the time. So more and more people. We also had Shelley Brindle. So Shelley was not, and this was part of my experience when I went there. Shelley was not working with Goldman, but what happened with the other people who mentored me and were not working at Goldman was whenever I had a meeting with my mentors, they would say, "Oh, I have a friend who I think you would learn from." And then they will call the friend and say, "Can you meet with Inya?" And then those people will say, "Of course, I'm available." And then they'll set up a meeting. So Shelley Brindle at the time was the mayor of Westfield, New Jersey, at the time. So I remember my meeting with her was significant because someone had mentioned her and said she was the vice president of HBO, and that since I was running a studio and I wanted to know, how far and and how well someone like that who was responsible for powering what's this dragon film that
Oh,
no Game of Thrones.
Game
Game
of
of
Thrones.
Thrones, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So responsible for powering Game of Thrones, I would learn from. And I remember they said, "Oh, we're not sure if we can meet with her because she's very busy." The next thing, I just got a call. They said they were meeting me, and all that. And they met with me as I was entering Goldman, and they just pulled me to one side and said, "Oh, don't offer to pay her drinks." Just reading me all the riot. I'm like, "Where are we going?" And eventually they just brought me forward to her to have a meeting with her. It was amazing. It was amazing. So I sat with her. I had only 5 questions or so to ask her, like time enough to ask, and I poured those questions out, and she gave me amazing answers. Some of those advice that she gave me, I'm still using, up until now. So those were the kinds of mentors that I got on the program. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so ca- could you summarize the most important things you got from the program? How long it was, and how it has helped contribute to the things that you do now, the success that you have now. Were there contacts, or what did you take away from it?
Okay, and I love this question because this is where a lot of people miss it. A lot of people assume that they when they have mentors, those mentors will just start opening doors, everywhere. Call someone important and say, "Get her in the room, get her in the room." No, I didn't get that. I got my mentorship. I got my moments with the people, and I like a sponge. Oh my god. I sponged as much as I could out of all of them. That was my focus. So the key lessons for me were, number one, I understood that if I wanted to make it gave me a redirection, because I understood that if I wanted to make the kind of change that I wanted to make, it had to come from an ecosystem point of view. It could not come from running a company. right?
Mm-hmm.
So also there were setting examples that were made, like, you have, whether you have Jeff Bezos, you have, you have companies like Google, Microsoft, you have companies like Amazon, and the rest of, they're solving problems. So I
Yeah.
understood what it was to do a for profit company and solve problems, become a social entrepreneur. And the difference between that and when you say, oh, I run a studio and the studio is, for profit, you will
Yeah.
just continue to find money, look for money, and that sort of thing, you won't be able to put together. That was one key thing, how to run my business and make impact at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Number two was, I had the privilege of meeting the leads of 10,000 women. So their idea of conception of their program and how they were running it and the feedback they were asking me for gave me an idea of how to structure programs, right? Because,
Right.
eventually I would start setting up and launching different programs. That just gave me an idea of what, meaningful structure looked like. And then number three, it gave me a redirection totally on what I should focus on for the next few years. It made me realize that what I was focusing on was totally, the wrong approach, in terms of strategy, business approach. It gave me a redirection. And then, oh, I forgot to mention, they gave me a business analyst. So there was a business analyst who was, one of the teachers who runs the 10,000 women for them, was with me every day, meeting with me, talking about my business, teaching me,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. So I just took some of them. I remember there was a particular mentor. It was her kindness I learned from her. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that I went into the room, I'm typically not the one who gets intimidated, but trust me, these women would, the way, when you read their CVs, their CVs would intimidate you, but then you see them face to face, and all of that would just walk out of the door, for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going into her office, and I remember the first thing she said to me was that she was inspired by me. I said, what? Inspired by me? How? I mean, this woman doing amazing. She was running. I mean, she's one of those running $3 million, kind of accounts and all of that. I just, some of, sorry, trillions of dollars. What am I talking about? I meant trillions of dollars. She was one of those
Yeah.
ones running trillions of dollars. The film person there says, oh, the investment they do is from 200 million and up
Mm-hmm.
in dollars. These were the kind of people I was meeting. And I remember going into this woman's office, and first thing she said to me was I inspired her. That the reason I inspired her is she has two assistants, pointed to them and said, look at them. If I need anything, I'd send my assistants. If I need to buy anything, I write it to the company. But
Yeah.
from what you've done, you've done this thing by yourself. Every, bit of the funding that you've by yourself. So basically you take on jobs, you make money, and you invest it in the
Yeah.
business. Like, that's what you're doing. And that really, I think that really touched me, because at that point I felt like, okay, I didn't see it as, I thought that was, I mean, that's what you do, but
So
the fact
it
that
was
she said it,
validation for you.
it really, it was validation. It was validation for me, so I learned from different people. I learned different. There was just one, and there was one mentor who teased me all through. That was all she teased me. She teased me
Teach
all
you about
through,
what?
was trying to teach me. She was talking about work life balance, and was telling me, okay, how do you cope with relationships? How are you so busy and you're getting a lot done, and all
Mm-hmm.
of that. And then she started talking about how, oh, maybe she should, oh, there's one cute guy here, maybe I should, she was just, it made it human. Like, it made the whole feeling, it made it feel like a community had my back, because I got
Yeah.
different. Some were strict, so straight to the point, tell me what
Mm-hmm.
are your goals. But some just melted. This particular woman who I said teased me gave me a million hugs. She's a hugger. I really wish to see her again soon. She's a hugger. So I got a lot of different things from everybody, and I noted every single thing that I got is what I give,
Mm-hmm.
today. Every single, all of those things that I got from all of these people are the things I give, today. So very rewarding experience in terms of transformation. I think the way it transformed me is more in the mindset. None of them said, "Oh, now that you are with us, I hand you over to this person. You get this grant because of no." And I didn't push for that either because I had things to arm myself with. Came back to
Yeah.
Nigeria. They told me first thing, you're already doing a lot in the CSR world, but you're not documenting it. Set up a foundation, so I set up a foundation as well. So your question about AWE, this goes into AWE now as well, because as I was there, poor Mr. Ibrahim, I would call I forgot about the time zone. Every time something exciting happened, I would call him and, I just met this person. You should have seen how this this happened. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was midnight because of excitement. I would call and give feedback, but the feedback I was giving um got him because he kept saying, oh, what did they say about that thing? Because meeting the Goldman Sachs team and then telling me certain structures or giving me information on certain structures on how they built their platform. Unknown to me, the Trump administration had launched a program called the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs and
Mm-hmm.
had selected certain countries have selected themselves to do it. And
Yeah.
Nigeria was one of it. And they were already in meetings to decide who the program partner was going to be to implement the program.
Mm-hmm.
But everything I was learning and I was calling him to tell me was exactly what they said they needed for someone to run that program. And I
Wow.
had no idea. I
So
had,
an
this
impressor.
was just me being excited
Mm-hmm.
and just doing ofofo and telling him, guess what? They said this, they said that, this is what I learned today, and all of that. I had no idea,
Mm-hmm.
so imagine my surprise, wrapping up the program. Oh, they threw me a go away party, invited very important people from different places. They did very important. It was a brunch, very important people from different places. They told me to do a presentation of my takeaways, and all.
Mm-hmm.
I was surrounded by, there were about 35 women, powerful,
Mm-hmm.
powerful 35, women and all that, who heard from me, gave me feedback and all that. But then when I was done with the program and I came back home, had, certain meetings. And from those meetings, I told, what, we're thinking of selecting you for the program because it makes sense that we invested in taking you there. You learned this thing and you're bringing it back home. So the
Yeah.
knowledge that you've gone to learn there, you're using it to implement something back home. So when, I mean, you know how we tell our short-sighted stories in Nigeria. Oh, maybe she knows someone there, or it's a
Mm-hmm.
story. It's a whole thing, for them that they,
Yeah.
took me there and I learned this thing and I gave feedback as well. And I learned it like I was in school,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't
How
just
long was the
having
program?
meetings for me and taking pictures. It was about a month. It was about a month. So
Okay.
I came back. Yeah, it was about a month. We did 1 week in DC. So with Vital Voices, the company that runs the program, and then we went to New York to meet our mentoring partners as well. So from there, I came back, to Nigeria, and then the program Academy for Women Entrepreneurs started. So it's a program focused on empowering women entrepreneurs and giving them access to necessary knowledge. The idea is that a lot of women start businesses without necessarily learning, of course, going to business school or whatnot. So it's like your crash course into
Mm-hmm.
business school, and it is so simplified because this platform has 13 models that breaks down every aspect of business that you should know. And it's also not just models, but then you have this animated character Sarah that guides you, through your process from one model to the other. You have recorded videos, and all of that, so it's easy to learn in terms of through the process. Yeah. Mm.
Okay. So for the program, it's an online program that a woman can take to help, like a crash course, like you said, right? So what's your role? How do you get women to subscribe? How are there apart from the online platform, is there a community of women as well? Help unpack what you do in AWE.
So I'm the implementing partner. for Nigeria at the moment. I started in 2019. I'm still the implementing partner till now. So basically, yes, the program is free for anyone. They can go there and take the course.
Of course.
But the U.S. consulate and embassy have their own way of implementing the program, where a number of people are selected. We
Okay.
do an open call for application. There's an open call for application that goes out. A lot of people apply, and then the number of people we decide on, training that year. Sometimes it's, when we started it was 100, then we moved to 120, and then it was 250, and then sometimes it's back to 120, depending on what the focus is on that year. They are selected, and yes, it's a virtual program, but we do a localized version of it. So it becomes a virtual and in person, that has an in person component. So, as I'm aware, all of the US exchange programs are, because typically how they ran exchange programs was you would travel to have the exchange. Because mine was an exchange program, and there are other
Yeah.
programs like that. But
Mm-hmm.
this also now qualifies as an exchange program, but it's an exchange program with a difference, and it means you stay back and learn it, but it requires a coming together component. So what we typically do, or how we've built it alongside the US government in Nigeria, is to do the virtual sessions and then come together for 3 days or 4 days and do the in person. This is where like everybody gets to meet each other. It becomes a conference networking. People see each other because they've been online. So we typically use
Yeah.
WhatsApp, put everybody on WhatsApp, and then when we have the virtual sessions, it's not just the women teaching, learning by themselves. When we have those virtual sessions, you learn by yourself. Every week we have a session where
Mm-hmm.
whatever you've learned, we bring in facilitators to break it down even further. They can ask questions and all that. And then eventually we started incorporating things like networking sessions where we put different people in different groups just to talk to
Mm-hmm.
each other, talk about their experiences, share their experiences, and the rest of it before they eventually, when they're meeting each other, it's like, oh my God, I'm meeting. It's fun. It's a fun experience. It feels like
Yeah.
some people feel like it's a getaway, like with friends. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
That's very impactful. Very, very, very impactful
Mm.
indeed.
So people
So,
can take it,
mm-hmm.
but then the one that makes you a part of the exchange community is the one that we run officially, where it is announced. People apply for the duration before the deadline. If you're selected, you come on the program and all of that, and then those people, everyone gets, anyone who takes it online gets the certificate. But then for the one we do, we have signed certificates by us and the US government that would, we issue to them as well, apart from the one they get online. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, cool.
Mm.
So apart from this, I know that you also are the convener of many conferences. At least I know of at least three or four that you've done this year, and they're all distinct, very different, but very impactful. I know you did the one for Science of Trade in May, and then I
Hmm.
think another one for entrepreneurs, and then for tech, and then for so. Tell us about each one of them and what you hoped to achieve when you started them, and if you were able to achieve what you set out to for each of them.
Okay. Okay, so there are a number of conferences we run, but they are all the same. I would say they're just focused on different sectors, is what I would say. So what happened was, once we started the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, and remember I told you I was already running some of these impact initiatives before, and my mentor said put it together, set up a foundation. I decided to go on with Ascent Studios Foundation so that everything is properly registered and whatnot. Once we started doing trainings for different groups of people, so the foundation is focused on sustainable economic empowerment for women and youth, right? So the idea is, and that's sustain, I love to add the sustainable there, because as you know, a lot of people are fond of doing projects that are just touch and go. Let's spend the
Yeah.
money on the
Mm-hmm.
project and it's done. We
Mm-hmm.
try to find ways to extend it beyond just that.
Just the project. Mm-hmm.
What we started, yeah, so what we started noticing was that remember I'd mentioned to you that everything had to come from an ecosystem point of view. That was one key lesson that I learned. Meaning, if you want to drive change for any sector, government has to be involved. Private sector has to be in the room with government.
Yeah.
Development sector have to bring development money, and then academia, when it comes to the research, when it comes to what their role is, they have to be in the room. What we typically have in terms of conferences, mostly in so many parts, of Africa. I will say Africa because I mean we've researched that is private sector driven conferences where business people will gather, talk about their problems, come back next year and talk about their problems again,
Mm-hmm.
in that way. And or governments will do their government ones, come in and say speeches, talk about their initiatives and all of that, and come back and do it again next year. Or the development sector, typically 2 day summits where they bring some key people who have benefited from their initiatives to come and talk about the benefits and all of that. We clap for them and then we'll go back. And for academia, unless they're meeting at doing matric and the rest of them, I'm just joking, they still but you get my point. Like,
Yeah.
these are it's so people are working in silos, and
Mm-hmm.
these things are quite segmented in that
Yeah.
way. And
Mm-hmm.
what I noticed quickly was that when we're training, for example, the women of the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, and they're talking about we need access, we need this, we need that. These are the ecosystem partners that are supposed to
Yeah.
come together and get it done. But then they're having their own meetings and, being able to choose. So, what I started doing in terms of strategy was to start creating conferences that, yes, we do these initiatives, we do all of this give back, we're able to give access to funding, maybe funding partners, access to, all sorts. But let us have a convergence where everybody can come together, everybody who matters can come together and see each other face to face. When we're programming our sessions or our panel discussions, we make sure there's a representative of all of these groups, on the panel. We're forcing you to talk, ask yourself
Yeah.
questions, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Africa Creative Market is a creative conference that brings together all of the key stakeholders within the creative sector and the people who are the creatives themselves. So, government, private sector, development sector, academia, all together. We choose a theme every year and we focus on that theme. Last year, it was innovation meets imagination. We're looking at how tech is enabling
Mm-hmm.
the creative sector, in that way. The next year will be focused on access. So we're bringing a lot of, international partners in to say, how can we have access to each other, in that sense. So there's always one theme or the other. For GTA, Global Tech Africa, that is an initiative partnered with another organization. It's in NIDA is a major support for us as well. So that one we have a heavy, all of them we have heavy government partners and development partners and and the likes of them. But for Global Tech Africa, the focus is the same thing, focused on bringing together ecosystem drivers and holders within the tech space.
Yeah.
In that sense, then science of trade is the same thing. It's just focused on trade, looking
Mm-hmm.
at the science behind trade, because a lot of people say we're doing trade, we're trading, but it's not necessarily trade. Some people are running hobbies. Some people are just floating. Some people don't necessarily know what to do. But since there's a science behind trade, let's start, unleashing what aspects, we need to learn with that. So what we tried to do with SOT the first year was to say, let us even just bring a fraction of the people we want to bring together. Let's have these key people. If you remember, there was private sector, government, everybody was there talking about what mattered in that way. And now the next step for that program is to then do a training into the next science of trade. So training for export readiness, in a way that when we're doing the next one and people are having meetings with the powers that be, basically it is, it's sensible conversations that they're having and they're quite ready. So that's typically what we do now. We have a convergence for a particular sector, but then throughout the year we can then do all other initiatives, empowering those sectors, and then once in a year we all meet.
So this
together.
is
Yeah.
so
And
this
did
is
am I doing what we need to do? Yes, we are. Absolutely. There's all sorts of, stories. If you go on the each of the pages of these conferences, we have testimonials. I have people who have reached out to me. Some it's to find jobs, some contracts, some, it's just all sorts of, feedback and all that. During the science of trade, we had someone who had um their goods, stuck at the customs, because remember the customs head was there.
yeah.
He took them to the office and they got it cleared, that day,
Wow.
as well. So he says, well, would love to do more, and all of that. So yes, there are solutions that are happening even right away and on, in place.
Which is commendable, because so many times we go to conferences, um we talk and talk and talk and talk, and then nothing happens. But let
Hmm.
me ask you this. So this is separate from your work with AWE.
Absolutely.
So I imagine that to be this successful, you are leaning on a lot of collaboration. Does it help that you are the program partner for AWE in pushing um, collaboration with the government, especially for the other conferences that you hold, or do you go on the strength of past conferences? Sometimes success begets success.
Hmm.
So you did one successfully, same people, same ecosystem, so it helps. How are you so successful with collaboration?
So I would say my approach to collaboration is attending conferences and attending events. Really.
Okay.
Even, people knowing that you run something is not enough. I don't think anyone will give their money to you just because you're running a program, and all of that. You need to show that you can deliver the results, right? So I'll say two things. Number one, I know I deliver results. I'm able to look at the goals of whatever project we want to get done and show results after. Number two, I attend events, I network. You have to spend money. The people who you can't meet in Nigeria. If I find that there's a minister who is not available to me in Nigeria and the minister is going to Dubai, I will go to Dubai and go and meet you there, because there, all of the paparazzi you have in Nigeria, you not have it in you
Exactly.
not
I've
have
seen
it in
that
Dubai.
before.
So you give
Everybody
yourself, you
is.
make yourself available to me.
Yeah, I noticed that in
Yeah.
conferences, especially the ones abroad, people that you can't get access to in
Hmm.
Nigeria
Hmm.
are simple people, because they come in on their own without the elaborate escorts and all of that. So they're more
Hmm.
accessible. So you're right. That's a secret for anybody trying
Exactly.
to contact anybody in government. Yeah.
Exactly. Meet them abroad. And then another thing I do is I deliver value. So a lot of the partnerships that I have today did not start by them funding or being a part of my event. Is by me meeting them and saying, "Oh, sir, what would you like to achieve? You have 5 years left. In the next 3 years, what would you like to achieve? Oh, I'm actually passionate about blockchain. Really? We have a program that is on blockchain. How can we help you achieve what you want to achieve?" So it becomes oh, really? Okay. Maybe government needs this and that and that. Oh, I actually know someone at the other side of the government who they have a project that is this and that and that. I facilitate introductions. You see, again, this is what people don't know. They assume that already, and I'm so happy you asked this question. So people just assume that because you run a US government initiative, then all of these things now started.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
The work the work actually begins, at number one, finding these people, getting to speak with them, trying to identify what you can do for them, not the other way,
Yeah.
because they're used to people asking them for
Taking
stuff.
from them. Yes.
People are used to, come and give us funding, come and give us, this. They're used to, so I always go with the approach of what can I do for you first? Or what are you, because every human wants to achieve something, isn't it? So sometimes I ask this question and they're looking at me, they're like, "Oh, what can you do for me?" I said, you have no idea. Oh. By the time I'm done, and all that. And that becomes, it grows into this friendship. There are people that I've known for 2 years, and it's only after 2 years they became a partner, right?
Yeah.
So this for example, USAID have partnered with the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs to give grants to the women of the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs. All of the women have been getting grants since 2019. I have till now I have not gotten one USADF grant.
Wow.
Yeah. And guess whose team, looks through the application and everything before handing over to them? It is still us. Who would look into it. The one that I eventually do, and then people just assume, oh, this it doesn't work that way. The fraction of the US government that is assumed, oh, they hand you over to this, it helps. Yes, it helps because they see, oh, you've worked with us, but they are all independent of each other. They're independent. So the fact that you apply to this person doesn't mean they will say yes because you're doing this with that person. And partnerships are typically not like that. People want people who deliver. Also,
Yeah.
remember that there are people who get some of these opportunities and they run the project down and all that. So people don't just go off trusting people because they said, oh, this person runs this. You have to show your worth. So, what
Yeah.
I would advise to anyone is number one, find the right people. I also make sure that I read a lot, I consume a lot of news. I follow, I follow activities, whether by the what's it called, the private sector, development sector, whoever is doing what. I want to know who is actively doing something, and then I start doing my targets. Oh, I've noticed that this person is doing this. Okay. Oh, this person posts on LinkedIn that they are traveling to this conference. Very good. Me too. I'm going there. I will see you there, and then I can message the person and say, "Oh, I'm coming to this conference. It would be nice to meet you there." And all of that. Some of, like, honestly, some of these contacts that I have today developed over 5 years, developed over 2 years, over 3 years. It wasn't instant at all. It wasn't. And then when you get the contact as well, again, it's important to find out what they want to achieve. It's not money
Yeah.
all the time. You don't, we need funding. I hate hearing that thing. You meet someone for the first time, you already say, oh, we need funding for different. It doesn't have to be funding. For science of trade, the US government partnered with us. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you
I
hear
can hear
me?
you now. I lost you. I can hear you now.
Oh,
I
you can
lost
hear
you
me.
for a minute,
Okay.
but I can hear you
Yeah.
now.
So for now, okay. So for science of trade, apart from the venture garden group that was a funding partner, the rest of the partners partnered with us to help us curate. They curated. That's all they. That's. I mean, I can say that's all they did, but it was a lot. As far as I'm concerned, it was enough for them to be, to be our partners. They helped us curate, contact the people we need to come and speak, and all that. That's also partnerships. So not all the time money, not all the time,
Yeah.
this, not all the time that. Just take whatever you can get and make the best of it,
Yeah.
then get results done. People who didn't come on board the last time are now coming on board and saying, now we want to be full, full partners in that way. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, what about HR? You do a lot, so you must rely on staff, personnel. So how do you get the right
Mhm.
people to support you? Because I know that if you don't have the right people supporting you, you could not have achieved half of the success that you've had now. So how has that been?
It has been, I would say it has been challenging and it has been a blessing. It has been challenging
Yeah.
because you see the few people we have. So I'm not typically the one who would have 50 persons on one project, right? It's good to have solid 20 and those 20 know exactly what they're
Yeah.
doing. It has been challenging finding more people because as we're expanding now and we're taking more on, we need to find more people. It has been a blessing because the right people just come at the right time and I look out for the right elements as well. So I'm not necessarily insistent on having people who are working directly for Ascend. I'm happy to have consultants, like the big corps do, when they're in a different country. You know that some of the big corps right now that are in Nigeria have, a a consultancy company handling this, a consultancy company handling that, in that way. So we function like that, where our part of our admin is handled externally. Our media and communication is in fantastic hands. YD Limited, fantastic hands. I'm not planning to change that one in another 1 million years. Those are the people we're going with. We've already become a family. They even do outside of what they're meant to be doing. They're now part of everything we're doing. And then we have our core staff as well. So we have our core staff who are 100% dedicated. I would 99% female as well. I mentor them as well as work with them. And with me, it can be a bit difficult to keep up, right? Because we're just deciding how we're doing this project, and then on the next call I'm like, so we just landed another we just landed another project. And I'm sure in their minds, they're thinking this woman is crazy.
They have a good
They're
problem.
thinking this woman is crazy. It's a good problem. And, and I quickly remind them that means more income for you guys. Because what we do, apart from the
Yeah.
basic salary, is that as more projects that as we bring on board, they get, additional pay, for each of those projects as well. So sometimes they say, hey, it's a lot of, but they're happy. They're like, yeah, so just bring it on, in that way. So yeah, I have a fantastic team, people who are passionate about what they're doing, and Enzo and Krypton as well. They do most of our admin, and they bring on the personnel that we need apart from the internal personnel that we have in that way. So I'm not a rigid person in terms of structure. I'm sure you can tell, not a traditional person in terms of structure either. I will get everything that I need to get done. That's my business. Get it done by working with people internally and external consultants as well who can handle things for us. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about, before I let you go, your most recent partnership with USAID for developing the creative
Yeah.
industry in Nigeria. Please, congratulations. That's a whooping sum, $3.5 million.
Thank
Could not have
you.
been easy. Tell us about it a
Yes.
bit, if you
No.
don't mind.
Okay. Yes. So remember, we're talking about the creative sector, and I was saying how, certain things are not sustainable. Um, I I wanted to make a TV series, and in making the TV series, the idea was, instead of just making another TV show that is strictly for profit, why don't we have something that we're able to train creatives alongside? A project that we're able to train creatives alongside, especially now that, through the creative markets, my work with the Women in Film. Oh, I'm also the president for Women in Film and TV Africa. My work with Women in Film and TV Africa, and the working with all the chapters that we're working with, there's now an extensive network of people that we can borrow from and lean on, in that way.
Yeah.
So that was how this project came to be, to create a blueprint for how development should look like from now on. It was designed to start in Nigeria, but particularly for Africa, to be able to do this from country to country, where it starts from Nigeria. 3,500 people, creatives are trained. VGG has come on board, Venture Garden Group has come on board to be the tech partner to track these people's progress and make them sort of like the pool we always go back to when we have opportunities, at least for the next 2 years. So the idea is, if I'm able to unlock additional funding, you see these people we've trained, they're the ones that will get it. If we're able to unlock additional training, if we're able to unlock scholarships, they will have to vie for it. It's these people that we keep going back to. That way, we can build a skilled workforce. And at the same time, 200 of those people will be hired to be a part of, the production. So we're hiring 200 of the 3,500 to join the cast and crew of the TV show that we're producing. And it's also open to additional partners as well, from all over. We're raising right now additional funding to see how we can scale the number of shows, to see how we can scale the number of opportunities, because outside of those 200, there are other people who, also need those opportunities in that way. So it is what I'm doing right now. Remember, I said throughout the rest of the year, I'm traveling all around. I'm meeting with partners and I'm calling everybody, calling favors everywhere. Can you take 2 mentees? Can you take 3 mentees? Can you take this? Can you take that? Just reaching out to all of the community and seeing what they can bring in. And USAID has this funding called the Edge Fund, EDGE. The Edge Fund is focused on helping private sector grow. And I'm so proud to say that it is the first time they're investing in the creative sector, and it's us they chose, to invest in. I'm really glad, and yeah, I'm really glad, and thank you. I'm really glad. And yeah, it's a co-investment. We're bringing in some money. Our partners are bringing, and USAID is also giving us, $1 million grant to add to it, to make this possible. And I'll not mention where, but another African country has already started vying for their own in 2026, just from us launching this project. They're already saying, yes, we want to be the next, country that you come to as well. So yeah, we're glad.
And I like it because it obviously shows that it's developed to bring impact, because you're not only training, you're also
Mm-hmm,
providing the avenue for them to find work. And the more work they
mm-hmm,
find, the more experience they gain, the more skilled that they will be.
yeah,
So you're developing an ecosystem so
mm-hmm,
that in the end, it actually, the ripple effect is across Nollywood. So that is
exactly.
fantastic.
Exactly.
It is fantastic. It is
Mm,
fantastic indeed.
thank
So
you.
you have spilled the beans on quite a lot of things, but I'll ask two more questions.
Hmm.
One, where do you see yourself
Okay.
in the next 5 years? And lastly, do you have any
Ha.
parting advice?
5 years. Wow, that is a long time. Oh,
Yes.
um. So I would see. So you see, this is the problem. Removing myself from the projects and the movements that I the movements that I have. So I'll talk about myself and the movements.
Okay.
Um, well, I would see. Hmm. So I would say the current number of people we're empowering would have multiplied by 10, is where, in terms of the scale of what we're doing. So that is where I see this. And in the next 5 years, I think that there would be a central system, would have built a central system of impact, sustainable impact, that comes in through an ecosystem form. We're working on having a central part where, whether it's the creative side, the technical side, you're doing trade, we're able to impact you, and you have access to all of the touch points of the ecosystem around you.
Okay.
Whether that is going to come in form of technology, whether that is going to come in form of a hub, or whether it would combine those two. I am not sure which one, but I know that in 5 years we would have a set central system.
And I'll be there to interview you again when you accomplish it.
Yes, right there. And in terms of parting words, I would say, let's live and focus on let's live and focus on what makes sense, to us as human beings. I think that there are too many people focusing on negativity. I doubt that they even understand what negativity is. It's become a norm. So people don't really understand that some of these things are negative. Focus less on what someone is wearing, whether they have added weight, they have lost weight, they have, all those things that that is none of
Doesn't
your
matter.
business. Do you understand? It doesn't really matter, and it is what I always say, even to the women we train. I always say, focus less on some of these things. Think of how what you're doing can benefit others. Because one thing I've learned from the rule of the universe is that the more impact you do for others, impact will start chasing you. Impact chases me these days. Like impact, the people, I would just sit still and then someone contacts me and says, "Oh, I have something for this project that you're running. I have something for you. I have something for
Mhm.
impact chases me." And I think it's the law of the universe. You do more for
Yeah.
others and then more things run after you as well. There's just too much negativity in the world. There's too much, how we call it in Nigeria, beefing. They are just very irrelevant points of anger, for everybody. Life is
Mhm.
very simple. And I pray that, we can all tap into the simplicity of life and, let go of the things that are putting us in shackles, because that's how I see it. Some of those things that are not so simple in life, they just put you in shackles. So yeah, that's what I would say. I've talked in parables, but I think everybody can understand what I'm saying. Anybody watching. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And with those parting words, I'd like to thank you very much. We've spent an hour, 15 minutes. In fact, you're my longest and most open interviewee so far. So
Oh, that's
thank you
nice.
so
I
much
broke I broke another
for
record.
explaining. Thank you so much for spending the evening with me and for
thank,
sharing secrets to your success. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and
thank you.
I know that the sky is the limit. You will go ahead and break
Yeah.
boundaries and do so much more.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you.